Let's talk about our Baritone Ukulele Kit. As many of you know, we already have a concert ukulele kit in our line. We've been selling lots of them. I know a lot of you have bought them, you've built them, you've had fun with them. Some are even selling them, so that's been a real success. We wanted to expand that line and we wanted to get into a different size. We looked at going to the next size up, which is tenor. Many people gave us some feedback that they'd rather go one more step and go up to baritone. So now we have the baritone kit in stock. Just like the concert, it has everything you need. Everything you need to build a ukulele except for the box. And that should be pretty easy for most of us to be able to find a box to build it around. So what I have here is one that I recently built. I think some of you may have seen a picture of this before. This is a baritone neck on this Cuba Deluxe box. Kind of a cool piece of art. I'm always kind of like these boxes, so I made it into a ukulele. I want to talk a little bit about the differences between the baritone and the standard or the concert neck. The big difference is the neck itself. The concert is set up with a scale length of 15 inches, while the baritone is set up with a scale length of 20 inches. So that's one difference. When you look at the necks and you compare them, you can obviously see the difference in size. But if you look a little bit closer, you'll see a few other differences as you begin to compare them. One of the big differences is that on the baritone, the fretboard is a little bit thicker. And with that thicker fretboard comes a thicker bone nut. And one of the reasons I bring this up is just so you know, if you're working on both of them, if you have some concerts and some baritones, the parts aren't just interchangeable. So you have to be careful about that. There's a nut specifically for the baritone and a nut specifically for the concert. One of the other things that's a slight difference in the kits is the size of the bridge. The bridge for the baritone is a little bit wider, a little bit longer than the bridge for the concert. Just so you know, the middle part where everything happens, the business part of this, they're exactly the same. It's just the wings are a little bit wider on a baritone. Allows you to glue it down, gives you some more gluing surface. But that's the only difference. The next thing is the strings. On the baritone, the kit that we're shipping now, we include the same strings that we included with the concert. But chances are some of these might be a little bit short for what you're trying to do. So we've also included a set of strings that are specific to a baritone. They're basically, again, nylon. The two bottom ones are nylon. The two top ones are silver wound nylon, something that you may have seen occasionally on a guitar. But again, these are made specifically for the baritone. Now, when it comes to building these kits, what you need to do is just basically go and watch the videos for the concert. It's the same process, the same procedures, everything works the same. Again, the tuners are exactly the same. The head shape is exactly the same. The way you connect with the bolt is exactly the same. There are just a few dimensions that are a little bit different that you have to take into consideration. So let's take a look at building one. Let's talk about actually building a ukulele using one of these new kits. But one of the things I want to bring up first is a little problem that I've uncovered. I've been building a lot of these ukuleles myself, having a lot of fun, finding it very enjoyable. It's something that I can share with other individuals. People really like them. They're a lot of fun. But one of the things I noticed when I was building these, I began to notice that on some of them, my action height or the string height off the fretboard was quite a bit higher than I really liked. And I had done some investigation, and when I'd gone to some of the stores like gone to Guitar Center or Sam Ash, and I looked at ukuleles, I always found that there was a significant height difference between what you find on a ukulele and what you find on a standard guitar. I talked to one of my friends who's a kind of a ukulele expert, or at least knows a lot about it, and he kind of smiles and says, yeah, that's pretty standard because we don't worry so much about the action height down here because 90 to 95, 100% of ukulele players only use the top 4 frets. So if those are close, it's fine. So anyway, that's what I've kind of learned. But again, I've kind of seen that a couple of things. It was a little bit higher than I liked. There's some things you can do to kind of fix that. One, you come into the saddle, you can shorten it a little bit and lower the back end. But I began to notice that some of my necks were beginning to flex a little bit and flex the box. And so what I wanted to do, and I began to work on, is a way of putting some bracing inside the box. If you've ever looked inside a acoustic guitar, stuck your hand in the sound holes and felt around, you'll find some bracing on the inside. That's a way to stiffen up the top surface so it doesn't flex so much. So what I've been working on lately is finding a way to add some braces on the inside of these boxes that I use for ukulele. I've created a part, we'll be putting it in our product line, a simple brace made of plywood. It was really easy to install. One of the things you'll notice about this, if you look closer, it has the little notch here in the center, and if you put a line down the center of the inside of the box and you line it up, you'll have this centered. This is 8 inches long. A lot of the boxes are much narrower than that. These were only 6 inches. I trimmed them off to get them to fit into this box. One of the other things you'll notice on this is there's a hole in the center. A lot of my boxes, I have the hole in the back, but some of them I do a traditional style, put the sound hole in the center. By putting this in there, by putting the brace in there and having this hole in there, you still can take a socket, and pass it through up to get to the nut to tighten it. So that's the idea of the brace. I know a lot of you guys are smart enough and you're going to figure out how to make your own braces without trying to buy one from me. I've always kind of liked these boxes, these feral flying pig boxes. They're kind of cool. But one thing I've kind of noticed on them is if you open them up, you look at the separators that are inside here, and they're just perfect and make perfect little bridges or braces. So again, some of you will make your own braces, but if not, we'll have them and you can buy them from us and they'll work real well. But the idea is to put this brace in here so that when we put the neck on here, when we put some tension on the strings, as it starts to put some tension on the neck, it won't compress this and it'll keep it nice and flat. Done it on a few of them and it does make a big difference. So that's something we need to keep in mind. The necks, again, doing the necks, very similar to what we've done with the other ones. You put the tuners on the same way, same thickness. One question I get a lot is, can you use other tuners that are in our line on these necks? No, you can't, not just as they are, because this neck or this headstock is a little bit thinner. Our other ones won't tighten up unless you put a washer in. If you want to put another washer under there, you can make them work. But for the most part, you need to stick with these tuners that we have. Again, one of the other things I like to talk about, I often bring up, is that one of the things you may or may not know, but the fretboards on these ukulele kits, both the concert and the baritone, are a synthetic material. They're made of a synthetic material. It's actually kind of a synthetic combination of fibers and a resin. And so it's a synthetic material. Now, I'm sure most of you have heard a lot about the debates and the discussions of moving away from hardwoods, from rosewoods to these synthetic materials. There's all kinds of raging debates and discussions, pros, cons, and everything. We're not going to get into that. All I can tell you is that for this application, for what we're trying to do, these synthetic fretboard materials seem to work real fine. One other thing to kind of keep in mind is it's also helpful with these fretboards, any fretboards, synthetic or regular ones, to occasionally treat them with oil. And this happens to be some Dunlop lemon oil that I got at the local Sam Ash. And you can basically come in and it has a dauber on the end, and you can apply some oil to there, let it set for a few minutes, wipe it off, and you'll have a real nice darker finish, and it'll look really nice. It works out really well. You can use the same oil on the bridge to darken up the rosewood a little bit, so it works really well. So again, that's getting the neck ready for installation. If you look at the other video, we kind of show you how we drill the hole to put the neck in. So this is one that I'm actually building. It's an Avo Uvezian box. I just really like these boxes. I've seen a few of them out there. Some of you have built with them. I think they're just really cool. They got neat art. It's quite different than any of the art, some of the other more traditional cigar box art or some of the crazy stuff. This is just a real classy look. I just have always liked these boxes. One thing I would say is they tend to be a bit on the thin side. Both the top and the sides are a little bit thin. They are, you can see they're made with a box joint, so they have some structural integrity, but they're kind of on the thin. Building this box, building this baritone box is very similar again to what I would do on a concert size. You can see, as I always have done, I come in and I reinforce the front of the box. I bring in, add in, this is actually a piece of 3/8, so now I'm full, at least ½ inch thick. Make sure I put glue on the face, up the sides, so I get a real nice solid fit with this stiffener inside there. One of the other things you'll notice I've done in here, if you're wondering why I've got this black paint here, what I like to do, on not all my builds, but a lot of the builds, especially if I put these big grommets in there, or if I have openings, I tend to like to paint the background black. I just think it's a nicer look. If you don't paint it, you can look in there and you can kind of see the corner, the geometry, the wood, and that's fine if that's what you want to do. I just think it looks a little bit nicer when it's kind of dark back there, kind of black. To me, it just kind of adds to the look, and I really, really like that. So again, what we do is, as you know, and I'm not going to finish this off, I just want to take you to the next step. Normally, if I was to go ahead and finish this off, what I would do is I would glue the box shut. I tend to have a completely closed and glued enclosure. It seems to me to make a little more solid structure. They tend to sound a little bit better. That's what I like to do. And again, talk a little bit about glue, because occasionally I'll get questions on it. Anytime I'm gluing two pieces of wood together, wood to wood, I always use some type of wood glue. Type Bond, Elmer's, any of those wood glues really, really work well. It's the kind of glue that is good for gluing two pieces of wood together. And I've got 40, 50 years of woodworking and building stuff. It's never let me down. It always works. It's a great tool for bonding two pieces of wood together. So when I would close this up, what I would do is I would actually come in and I would glue the joints, close it, clamp it, and let it wait for a while and then assemble it. But I'm not ready to finish this off yet. I'm still doing some demos for this video. So again, let me do is just kind of show you kind of the next step. What we have is, you can see I always cut a hole on the back side. Sometimes it's on the front, but most of the time I do it on the back, do a little different sound hole on the front. So I've got it in the back. I basically use a 2½ inch hole saw to cut my holes, get it up here to the front. It makes it real easy to assemble. Then we get ready to assemble it. What I do is, you'll notice, you've seen in the kit that we provide 2 washers. What I suggest you do is add another bigger washer. In the future, on my future kits, I'll be putting another bigger washer in there. Gives it a little bit more of a flat surface to tighten up against. So let's see if we can put this together. So again, I've got a bigger washer. I'm going to go ahead and put the bigger washer on there. Then I've got the 2 washers that I provide. And now the trick is to see if I can get the nut to start on there. Sometimes it's a little bit hard for me to get my big paw in there and get it started, but we'll see. Oh, got that started pretty well. So again, I get that in there. We're just, again, because it's a demo, we're going to tighten it up a little bit. One of the things I suggest if you're going to build a lot of these is to get yourself a couple of 10mm tools. You may have to buy the whole set, but on the tuners, the nuts up there, the ferrules, those are a 10mm, as is the nut that goes in to hold this in here, 10mm. So I use a couple of tools. One, this is a wrench. It's a box end on one side, open end on the other. It works really well for getting in there and tightening it up. And you can also use a socket if you want to get in there, a tin socket. You may have to use an extension, or I've even used the deep well sockets. So I go in and get it tightened up, okay? One of the things I also want to make sure is I want to take a look at this when you're building this to make sure that there's nice, even contact, that this is flat against the surface. Again, because we put the brace in there, we've got a lot of rigidity, so when we tighten up the strings, this should be a really nice, really solid connection. Now, if you want to, you can glue that when you're near your final assembly. You can put some glue underneath it. What I will tell you is that because of this synthetic material on the fretboards, the woodworker's glue doesn't tend to work as well. So what I like to do in those applications, and I found it to work really well, is I like to go with this Loctite GO2 glue. That seems to work well. It's kind of a hybrid glue. It's not like the woodworking glue. It's not like the super glues or those kinds of glues. It's just a regular glue that works out really, really well. But it does take a long time to set. You put it in there, and it's going to take a while for it to tighten up. So it works really well, and I've done it, and I'm pretty happy with it. But for now, on this one, I'm not going to glue it. And on a lot of them, I have not glued. I didn't glue it on this one, and it seems to work out fine. So anyway, we've got the neck placed. What we want to do is then get our, again, always check and double check everything as you're putting it together. So I can take my tape measure, and I can measure to the corner of the fretboard, measure it that way, measure it that way, and I know that I'm right in the center. You might want to carry and keep handy a little round file, because when you're getting this done and you put it in there and you tighten it up and you notice that the neck is shifted one way or the other, what you might have to do is come in with a file and file that hole and get it to slide over. We want to make sure that that's right in the center. If it's off a little bit, it's not going to be a big problem, but I like to kind of keep things square and keep things straight. So once you've got the neck mounted, let's talk about the next step, and that's getting the bridge in location. If you've done one of our concert kits, you know that we have a really cool template that helps you place the bridge relative to the neck. Well, lo and behold, we have the same thing now for the baritone. You notice on here it says MGB, it's got baritone, it's got a part number on there, but it's a little bit different. Looks like it could go either way, and let me explain that to you. But in this application, we basically can put it on like that. We have the bridge, and it tells you where to stick and locate the bridge to get the right scale length. There's also a different way, and what I want to talk about there is something that you'll see a little bit more of that'll be coming in the future, is that we now can use these baritone necks to actually build short scale guitar. And you're going to hear a lot more about that as we go forward. Flip the template around, and on the other end, by going the other way, what we now have is we now have space to put in a hardtail bridge and get the spacing correct for the scaling. A lot going to happen on this, and you're going to hear more about that in the days to follow. So, but anyway, for right now, let's take a look at positioning the bridge on this build. So again, we put the neck on there, we take the bridge, we have an opening, we can fit it in there. These templates are good to kind of get you close, but you want to take the effort, make the effort to make sure and get it fine-tuned to be exactly right. If you'll notice on this neck, when I was assembling it, I went ahead and put the tuners on, but I didn't put the nut on there because I like to keep that open, because I like to be able to hook my tape measure up on that end of the scale and kind of take a look at this. And I can see by looking down here that I'm just about maybe a 30-second off. So I need to move this template and the bridge accordingly down about a 30-second. So now I know I've got exactly 20 inches from where the nut will be down to where the center of the saddle is. And one of the things to keep in mind, I'm sure if you've looked at these, you'll notice that the saddle is a piece of bone, but the top of it has a radius on it. So when you line this up and when you measure to the saddle, you're not measuring to the front or to the back, but actually to the very center. So make sure you keep that in mind when you're measuring. Again, lay this out, take a look at it, and it's dead on. I mean, it's right dead on to 20 inches. So one of the things we need to also do as we're working on this is we need to prepare this for gluing. Because what I will tell you is with the tension, the neck is going to want to lift up a little bit, and it's going to want to pull the bridge out. So we've got to make sure we have a really solid connection. So once I have this located, what I like to do is come in and mark where that opening is. It's pretty tight fitting opening to the bridge. Just fits really nicely. So I've got that marked. Then what you can do is you can come in if you want, and you can actually tape around the opening. I've already prepared this, but I would show you what I would do is you can come and you can put some tape on where you put those pencil marks. Kind of give you some guidelines, some guide rails, because what we've got to do is we've got to go in and remove the paint and even their part of the label. So I've already done it, but we need to be prepared. Again, we want to glue wood on wood if possible. That makes the best connection. What I did here, as you can kind of see, is I've already come in and removed the paint and even removed this little paper label. What I used was a chisel that I have, a nice little 1/2-inch chisel, and I came in and I very carefully scraped and removed the paint that was on there. You have to be careful not to gouge into it. You want to keep it nice and flat so you got a nice glue bond. What I would do then is take a little sandpaper, make sure it's nice and flat, make sure it's nice and smooth, and then you get ready to glue it back. What I would do then is, again, take the bridge, put the template on, get it mounted where you want it, do another measurement, make sure we're at 20, hold the template carefully, put a little bit of glue on there. And one of the tips I like to do when I'm working with some of these hardwoods, what you'll find with a lot of hardwoods is they tend to have a lot of oil, whether it's rosewood, some of the other things, bocati, some of the other woods that are really hard. They tend to have a little bit of oil in them that can interfere with a great connection. So whenever I'm doing anything with rosewood gluing and stuff like that, I always want to make sure that I have a very clean connection. So I use some lacquer thinner, a little paper towel, and I come and I take the back of the bridge and I give it a good cleaning. You can see a little bit on here. Make sure that I've got it down, make sure it's nice and clean and ready for assembly. So I would go ahead then, take again my wood glue, put some ample wood glue on there, put it in place. Then what I would do is I would go ahead, because we've got to clamp this, I would go ahead and, again, one last time, check it to make sure it's right. Then I would add the screws, because they'll act to kind of hold it together, kind of in a clamping fashion. Hold it together. You can then remove the template. Then you can grab another bigger clamp if you have, put the clamps on there, hold it in place. Some people like to come out to the wings, to the sides, and put 2 more screws. Can't hurt, might help. We want to make sure that that's nice and secure. So get it secured, and then we're ready to go on to kind of the next step in the process. If you're going to use wood glue, take the time, let it dry overnight. You'll be well served by being patient and make sure that it's nice and solid. So that's something we want to make sure and focus on. I want to talk a little bit about sound holes and grommets. Again, with a different kind of glue. When I'm working, I like to use the Loctite glue. Again, that GO2 glue works out really well. By the way, whenever I'm storing this, I always store it upside down so the glue runs to the bottom, so the air is on the top, so it doesn't tend to harden the glue down towards the bottom. So I keep that upside down. So then again, with these grommets, I use that, put it on there. Then you have to kind of wait about 24 hours for that to be really secure. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. What I've also done, you've seen on this other guitar, what you'll see is that I also used two of these gear sound hole covers, because I thought it went really well with this theme of this motorcycle. Kind of looked cool in my mind. So I went ahead and did that. Now one thing also is a little tip. What I have found is if you go to Home Depot and you go in the paint aisle and you find this Project Source spray paint, this is flat black, it works really, really well for black. I use it for black when I want to paint parts black. Also use it for inside the boxes to darken them up. It works really, really well. So once you get that, you're pretty much ready to go. Once it dries, you can come in and string it. watch my the other video on stringing ukulele. The one thing is, when you do the baritone strings, I don't recommend the reentrant tuning. You start off at the bottom with the smallest nylon, then the next nylon, then you hop over to the steel strings, or the silver wound strings, and go from the smallest to the largest. And then we tune it up to DGB-E, just like we would a normal four-string guitar. Seems to work best. One of the things I've learned in studying this whole ukulele situation, there's a lot of string options. There's plenty of different ways. Everybody's an expert. Everybody's got an opinion. These strings are better. These strings are worse. It's just all over the roadmap. But you know, you'll have to kind of decide for yourself what you want to do. So anyway, I think I pretty much got that covered. Obviously, one of the last steps before stringing is we want to go ahead and mount the nut. What I use there is a super glue. It tends to work really well. I have a little jar of super glue here. Take the super glue, and what I like to do is I don't want to go the whole length across there because I don't want to run it off on the sides. What I do is get down in the corner and go about 3/4 of the way, leave a little bit of an empty spot on both ends. Then I take the nut, snap it into place, make sure I got a good side-to-side location, hold it for about 5 seconds, and now you've glued the nut in place and it's ready to go. String it up and you'll be ready to play. I sure hope that you found this information helpful. I hope that you'll try out one of our baritone kits. I think you're going to like it. And stay tuned, because you're going to see a lot more coming on our short scale guitars. Thanks a bunch. Have a good day.